This is BankCents, the podcast that makes sense of all things banking. If there's something you don't understand about banking or finances, you're not alone. Our industry experts are bringing you informative and enjoyable conversations that break down bank jargon and dive into hot-button financial topics. And now, BOS, a community bank located across Illinois and Missouri, presents BankCents. Here's your host, Gregory Morantz.
Welcome back to BankCents, the podcast that makes sense of all things banking. I'm your host, Greg Morantz, Executive Vice President here at the Bank of Springfield. And on today's episode, I'm excited to bring you the voice of BankCents, Tim Welch. Tim, welcome.
Thank you.
Before we dive into our topic today, Tim, can you give us a little bit of background on what you do at the bank?
Yeah, I've been with BOS over 12 years now, and I've been down at the Chatham branch running the show, I guess you could say, for about 9.5 years. And I help teach some of the classes in the community. I help teach some of our customer service classes in the bank. So I do dabble in a lot of things, but mostly I'm down at Chatham.
Yeah, and one of the things you mentioned is you teach classes in the community, and not just to adults, but you also teach classes to kids, which leads us into our topic for today, which is banking for kids.
Absolutely.
So let's dive into that. Why do kids need to know about banking, and what do they need to know?
Well, it's a great question. I mean, I think we would all agree that we want our kids to grow up to be financially sound and to have that knowledge and have that base. And you know, I have a 9-year-old and an 11-year-old, and what I found is a lot of the things that we learned in school, and maybe they're not quite there yet, but I feel like they're not getting a lot of that in school. So it's really, the onus is on the parents now more than ever to teach our kids about money, about budgeting, saving for the future, all those types of things.
Yeah, and that really leads us back to kind of the mission of the podcast in the first place, too, is to get out there and educate, parents, adults, and then kids eventually too, and pass it on to the next generation.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a big opportunity that we have here as a bank, and that we can do in this podcast as well.
I think sometimes technology is wonderful and I use it all the time, but sometimes it can work against us because we lose some of those basics, and we lose balancing a checkbook, and we lose some of the things that some of us grew up learning how to do. And I think we see more and more that we have customers that come in, younger customers that it's not their fault necessarily, they just don't know. And so it's great to spend some time to educate them.
Yeah, so why might a kid or a young adult, why would they need a checking account even?
Well, I think it's important, again, now more than ever, places are going cashless. Kids are getting jobs at a younger age, and almost everyone does direct deposit. It's very rare anymore that somebody comes in weekly with a paycheck. It just doesn't happen that much anymore. So instead of that money going into a parent's account, it can go in an account for the kid, and they can have access to some of those funds. The parents, again, can help them with the budgeting. And when they go places with their friends or they go to different events, they can use that debit card or whatever they have to help pay their own way, I guess.
Yeah, and I know one of the first things I did, we have a 3.5 and a 1.5-year-old at home.
Mm-hmm.
First thing I did for them within the first few months of them being born, as soon as they got their Social Security number, was open a savings account.
Absolutely.
So it's a great place for when grandparents want to give some birthday money out,
right.
If you want to start saving for college and eventually put that into a 529 plan.
Mm-hmm.
It's a perfect thing to do for them there.
Yes.
It's to help them start saving right off the bat.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are what we call minor savings accounts, and those have a guardian on the account with them, either a parent or grandparent. I've seen grandparents open them for kids too. But that money's designed to be in there and not to be accessed until the guardian signs off on it being accessed. So really, it's more of a long-term savings plan. Whereas having a youth checking account or a teen checking account, which I know we're going to get to later, allows the kid to have some spending money without having to dip into that minor savings account that's there really for a different purpose.
Yeah, and that really leads us into teaching our kids about banking responsibly. And into kind of our next topic and responsible spending and some differences in checkings and savings account. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, I definitely want to talk about the checking and savings account, but the kid stuff, of course, is near and dear to us because we both have young kids. And I got to tell you, this is one of the best things I think we can do to teach our kids, especially kids your kids' age. Mine are at the age where they're starting to understand debit cards, they're starting to understand checking accounts, but the real young kids, like you said, it doesn't hurt to start them young. Using a piggy bank, it not only helps them learn about saving, we all know that, but it also helps them learn about the coins themselves, the values of the coins, how to count money, and they can start thinking for themselves when you take them to the store. How much money's in your piggy bank? You can count it before you leave. Well, there's $3.28. Then you can start showing them things at the store. Well, this is $2.98. And they'll start putting those pieces together of how much they need to save to get the things that they want.
Yeah, and once that piggy bank's nice and full, and maybe it's time to go open that checking account or savings account and go come to the bank and deposit.
Could be your first deposit, absolutely. Yeah. So it really teaches them. And then, I will say about that too, we all are using our debit cards and credit cards and things like that more often. So as a parent, you need to kind of concentrate on getting cash out so you get change for them to put into the piggy bank, so you can pay them an allowance or however you want to do it. But it gives them a physical coin to put in there, and that's a great way to start.
So next, let's move on and talk about some of the features that we have on the youth checking accounts.
Sure. Well, I think the first thing is that if you want to teach your kid about money, you have to let them learn about it. You have to let them do it firsthand, and you have to let them make mistakes. And I think that the checking account, it has the parent on it. So the parent is always in control of what's going on. They can see everything with their mobile app. They have control of spending habits. They have control of how much money can even be in the account. So if you only want your kid to be able to spend $25, you can just put $25 in the account, and when it's gone, it's gone. Yeah. So the parent ultimately has that control. But again, it helps them budget. Well, I know I have $25. I'm going to be with my friends all day. I don't want to spend all $25 at once. And it helps them to start thinking about what's coming out through the day. Because that's really a microcosm of what, as parents and as adults, we deal with when we're thinking about bills on a weekly and monthly basis. They're thinking about it on a daily basis. So it's really great for that. It's a great kind of first step, I guess you could say, or dipping their toe in the water to understand what it's going to be like when they have real bills to pay.
Yeah, and I want to jump back to the point you were making about, putting $25 in there and letting them make their own mistakes to a certain extent.
Yes.
But also having that monitoring ability. And I think that's one of the great things about our apps is, say you give your kid a debit card, for example. You can set up our fraud alerts, which we've talked about in previous episodes.
Yes.
And you can set those alerts up to see, where they're spending and what they're spending. And if you need to turn your card off from your phone, we can do that now.
Yeah, it's really great. Every transaction can pop up on your phone as an alert. If you need to turn the card off, you can. But you can set spending limits at certain they can spend so much at grocery, they can spend so much at food, so much at gas stations, things like that. So when you got a teenager that's driving and you realize, hey, maybe they're driving too much because they're filling up their gas tank 3 times a week, that helps you monitor those things and still gives you that safety net that you're not going to have maybe when they're out of the house. But when they're at home, you can kind of soften the landing. But it's a great lesson to teach them. When they swipe their debit card and maybe it doesn't work because there's no funds available, they realize, I may have made a mistake. And that's great to learn from mistakes. That's how you remember.
Yeah, and with little kids at home, I don't have to worry about that quite yet.
Not yet.
Fortunately, but it's nice to know in the back of your mind that you have that security, but you're still giving them that autonomy to make their own decisions.
It's a little bit of independence and a little bit of supervision. It is.
Yeah. Are there any other points you really want to bring up just about kids banking that we really haven't touched on, and just an education out there for parents that want to get their parent or kids an account opened, and maybe some other tips and tricks to helping them, learn more about their financial wellness?
Well, yeah, I think starting early with the kids obviously is the most important thing. Utilizing the tools that we have, that we offer, especially somebody that's a bank customer. We have youth and teen checking accounts that we can open from age 10 all the way up to 17. And we can help you tailor those to meet exactly what your needs are for your child, for your family. And we have a lot of resources at bankwithbos.com. There's articles there that you can read to help you learn more about things changing all the time and helping your kid keep up with that and showing them where the resources are. Maybe they can seek out some of those resources too. But as far as opening an account, the parents already have accounts with us. Come by, you'll open a teen or youth checking account with your child. You'll be on the account with them. You'll have full access. They'll have access to a debit card. They'll have access to mobile banking. But again, all under your supervision as the parent. So it really gives you a lot of tools that you need to help your child be successful with money.
Yeah, and I do want to jump back real quick to one thing you kind of mentioned there.
Sure.
Is that, back when we were growing up, it was your parents gave you $20 and you'd go, if you were at a concession stand, you'd go spend
Absolutely.
that money. But
$20?
Yeah.
That would have been a lot. That would have been a fortune when I was a kid. Absolutely.
But tying it back to the environment we're in now, most places might not take cash anymore.
It's true. There's places here locally, the Sky Zones, the bounce tags, places like that where kids will go and hang out. They may not have a cash availability. They may be totally cashless, or you don't necessarily want your kid walking around with cash. They can keep the debit card safe in a locker a lot easier than 3 singles and quarters and change and all that stuff, because kids' clothes don't have pockets nowadays. I mean, I always had jeans, I always had pockets, but they don't anymore. So maybe the convenience of doing that, but yes, I think that responsibility for them to have that card and you having the control of it is great for those situations too.
Yeah, great. Well, I really appreciate you coming on today and talking about kids banking.
Sure.
I mean, there's a lot of reasons that a kid or a young adult might need a checking account or savings account, whether they're starting their first job or they're just trying to save for the future, for college or whatever it might be. And I think the big thing is it's really setting that foundation for them that we talked about at the beginning of the episode. Is we're trying to teach financial literacy out there, and it's the responsibility of parents out there to teach their children and create that foundation for them about their checkings account and then how to save for the future and monitoring how much money they have in their account, so they know, hey, if I only have $25 left, like where can I allocate those funds? And it really starts that foundation of budgeting and just smart financial practices.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. And we're here to be that resource. So you utilize BOS. Let us be that resource for you. Come in and see a banker, see a branch manager. We'll help walk you through the process.
Yeah. Well, Tim, thanks again for coming on. I really appreciate you going over this topic. I think it's incredibly important for us as parents to know this information and to pass along to the next generation.
Absolutely.
So we can all, learn a little bit more and be smarter about our financial health.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to BankCents, the podcast that makes sense of all things banking. Until next time.
Is there something about banking that doesn't make sense to you? Submit your questions to us on Instagram Messenger or by email, bankcents@bankwithbos.com. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, comment below. We're happy to give you our 2 cents on a wide range of topics. Thank you for listening on Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. And please leave us a 5-star rating and review so we can continue to bring you more educational content. Thank you for listening, and we hope you join us on the next episode of BankCents.